first ever live stream. We're hopefully both on YouTube and Twitch by now. We are going to be talking a bit about fatigue today. So if you have any questions, do pop them in the comment fields and we'll try and pick them up. I'm joined here by Claire from the info team here at the MS Trust. And also Nick is off camera. He's going to be picking up the questions that you are hopefully posting in our comment fields. But first, can I just hand over to my colleague Claire, and she can talk a little bit about who she is and why we can talk about fatigue today.
Sure. Hi, Helena. Hi, everyone. So I'm Claire. I work in the information team here at the MS Trust. So we're the team that looks after the website and all the books and publications that we do. But some of us also work on the helpline as well. So we're the people, some of us will be the people that pick up the phone or answer your emails if you have any questions. And I'm here today in that capacity. I'm not a medical professional. And in fact, none of the information team at the MS Trust are medical professionals, but we're information professionals. We are all about providing the right information for you to help you make your decisions. We're not about making decisions for you or taking away any of that, any of your personal agency or influencing you in a way that your own health professionals would find problematic. So we're big believers in shared decision making. You know, your medical issues about things that you discuss with your health team. But that doesn't mean that there's not a really important place for information as well in this space. And for something like fatigue, which affects so many people with MS, I don't think it's very surprising that there's a lot of non-medical things that people have come up with to help themselves and help others. And I think there's lots of hints and tips that we can take from the MS community, and we can maybe find some of those things that work for us. I think it's fair to say that not everything will work for everyone. But yeah, we're going to explore that a little bit today.
Yeah. And I guess it's fair to say from the helpline that fatigue is one of the most asked questions that we get.
Yeah, it's definitely in the top 10. It's often not the thing that causes a crisis moment for somebody. You know, it's not like perhaps chronic pain or a really upsetting situation at work or something like that, which are really common questions as well. But fatigue is, I think it's fair to say, one of the most reported symptoms.
Yeah.
And it has a huge impact on everything else. The knock-on effect on things like pain and mobility and employment status and your relationships and your family. And I think most of all, mental health as well. We did do a survey, and we have a survey live right now, so look for that on our website and please do fill it in. But the survey that we're doing at the moment is indicating to us that fatigue is one of the things that has a big impact on people's mental health. And I think people beat themselves up about it. They think, oh, why can't I just get up and do stuff? Why can't I do the washing up? Why can't I go and play outside with my kids? Why can't I finish this task? Yeah. And they get really hard on themselves, and that leads to a kind of a spiral in mental health as well. So that's, you know, we want to make sure we sort of head that kind of thinking off. You really do not need to feel guilty for feeling fatigued. It is incredibly common. It's part of your MS, and we can explore that a little bit more.
We've had the first person saying hello.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice.
Hello.
So should we just very quickly talk about why does it happen in MS? Why is fatigue a thing?
Well, there's definitely a kind of primary fatigue and a secondary fatigue, I think it's fair to say. And the evidence suggests that the demyelination of your nerves slows down the messages that are getting around your body, from your brain to your muscles and your body. And so and that kind of slow communication can feel like it can be a big part of the fatigue.
Yeah.
But I think and that kind of primary fatigue can then be made worse by heat and by stress and all the other things that would make any other MS symptom worsen. Again, quite variable for individuals, but certainly a thing. And then there's a secondary aspect of fatigue, and that might be where your MS is causing you to have sleep problems because of broken nights or spasticity issues or something like that. And then you have broken sleep and you don't feel rested when you wake up. And that's just on top of any existing primary fatigue that can just make the whole thing much worse and much more difficult to deal with. There are some MMS drugs that do influence fatigue badly as well. Again, it's a side effect of some drugs which are used for often for spasticity and spasms particularly, that they can have that kind of general depressing effect on all sorts of muscle activity and nerve activity. But I think it's fair to say that's again, it's a bit hit and miss, it's a bit variable.
I know, for instance, I've taken drugs for my vertigo, and obviously those are the ones that said do not operate heavy machinery while you're doing. So it's like, yes, I'm not feeling woozy, but I am feeling sleepy instead.
Yeah,
so.
Is that better? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I guess being able to walk without falling over is a big thing. But if then you sometimes put up with those side effects on the flip side. Yeah.
We had a question on Instagram, which was, does it ever stop?
I think it's fair to say that it can come and go, and that you can manage it and you can learn to manage it. I think I would imagine that if you are a little bit prone to fatigue with MS, you'll kind of always be a little bit prone. And as I say, it won't take much like stress, hot weather, an underlying infection to bring it back again. But I think there is really good evidence that rehabilitation, that sort of occupational therapy kind of support can really help, and can really help you kind of get a handle of it and live with it in a way that it's not impacting you to such an extent.
I think when you're living with it, and especially, I don't know, people are all different, but this time of year I find I have quite a lot of fatigue. And when I walked into work this morning and I saw there were some flowers out and it was lighter, and I suddenly thought, I'm not feeling fatigued. And it's weird because then you're actually noticing those moments when you're not feeling fatigued more than because the status quo is that you are feeling fatigued. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, some of the things that some of the ways people describe fatigue, I think are really evocative, aren't they? Like wading through treacle, or I feel like all my clothes are made of lead, or this feeling that you're just always carrying a bit more, and there's a huge barrier to sort of stopping you moving or working or thinking. Well,
so this is sort of a little bit similar with does it ever stop? Can you beat MS fatigue? Is there anything that we can do to? I mean, we spoke a little bit about medication that causes this, but is there? I mean, what approaches are there?
There's a kind of the successful approaches for dealing with fatigue and sort of getting to grips with it work around two things: about making sure that your kind of energy supply is as good as it possibly can be, and then there's making sure you don't use it up on the wrong stuff. Yeah. So it is about learning what you're like, learning how you respond best, and about making those sort of adjustments. So, for example, people with MS or other kinds of fatigue often get into a bit of a boom-bust cycle. Yeah. So you think, I'm not feeling fatigued today. Excellent. Right, well, I'll strip the wallpaper off the second bedroom, I'll mow the lawn, and I'll write that best-selling novel, and I'll do it all today. Yeah. I mean, maybe not all those things. But, I'll do all the stuff. I'll do it all now while I feel good. And you do a few things, and then you're knocked sideways for 3 days afterwards. And actually that can be really hard, because it's this having to hold yourself back when you are feeling good in order to make sure that you are feeling good later, and you can kind of keep that level. So things that you can do to make sure your energy supplies are really good. I mean, the obvious ones: are you eating properly? Are you getting the right nutrition? Are you getting enough fluids? It's kind of, sometimes it can be easy to overlook, and sometimes it can be really hard to to cook a nutritious meal for yourself when you're feeling really fatigued, and it can get a vicious circle that way, and you just go for tea and toast because it's easy, and you end up finding that you're actually missing quite a lot of important aspects for your diet. So that's first thing, let's rule out any kind of deficiencies or poor nutrition. Are you getting enough sleep? Are there things you can do to make sure your sleep isn't too disturbed? Are there symptoms that trouble you at night, whether that's getting up to go go to the loo, spasms at night, restless legs, that kind of thing. Oh yeah, that's an issue actually. We got a question there from Menelaya. Issues with family not understanding fatigue. That is so often. They just say, well, what, you're just lying there, you're just sitting there. What do you mean you can't get up and do this?
It's just a little bit of tiredness.
You're just tired.
All the time.
Yeah, we do. And I think when you are a person who doesn't have MS and you're a bit tired, you can push through a little bit. Or you can certainly test. And you can say, right, come on, get up. And you do get up and you do the thing and think, okay, no, maybe I wasn't so tired. And actually, maybe I can trust that I will get a decent night's sleep and I will wake up refreshed. Yeah. But with MS fatigue, you don't have that. You don't have that knowledge that you're going to wake up refreshed. You don't have that knowledge that you're going to get up from your, afternoon rest and feel able. And it's that uncertainty, I think, that's really tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard to explain.
So how do you explain it to your family? I mean, you can point them to the resources on the MS Trust website. Yeah. You can point to our very lovely book, Living with Fatigue, a guide for people with MS, and we have got some information in there about how people with MS can talk to their families about that.
I guess sharing information as well. So if you, for instance, we have a really good video on our YouTube account there, which has got people describing how fatigue feels for them. Yeah. So if you feel like you can't share it directly with people, maybe share it on your social media, or so people can sort of start to understand that this is something that you're living with, and it is different from just feeling tired.
It is different from just feeling tired, and it is, it is more. There's more to it than that. But you know what? If it's getting enlist help. Enlist them to help. If can your family, your partner, your kids, can they be doing some of the chores which you are otherwise taking up your precious time and energy? Yeah. Because your energy is precious. And you have MS fatigue, you need to be absolutely thinking about the things that matter to you. What are the things that I really want to do that make me feel good as a person, make me feel connected to my community, my family? I don't need to do the washing up every single day if it's that, or speaking, or getting out to speak to a friend and have a coffee with them. It's about saying, actually, it makes me much happier to feel like I'm a good parent and I can spend some time with my kids after school. Whereas, and if I have to not do other stuff to prioritise that, then I do. Yeah. So it's that balance, isn't it?
I would suggest as well, if you got an MS nurse appointment or so, to actually bring along the family member to sort of have the nurse explain to them, because sometimes it helps when it comes from a health professional.
Seeing that a health professional will take fatigue very seriously as well. That they're not brushing it off. They're not saying, oh yeah, absolutely. That there are courses that your health professional can refer you to. Something like the Facets course, or a similar fatigue management course. And you don't have courses for stuff that don't exist, that are just in your mind, or you're making it up, or you're milking it somehow, so.
And maybe get that book and have it laying around the house in a suggestible way.
Exactly. We didn't go to all the trouble of writing this for a made up symptom. It is one of the most common things in MS, and it is invisible, and that makes it really hard to communicate about. So anything we can do to help with that, we want to be there.
But speak up, I would say. Don't.
I think, the things like planning and delegating. That's about. So we talked about filling up your energy supplies, but the planning and delegating side is about really using it wisely. And the MS community have given us lots of tips on that. From you don't have to stand up to chop vegetables. And if that's going to tire you out, sit down and chop your vegetables and save your energy for just standing at the stove. Yeah. While you're there, why not do a double batch? And then you've got something in the freezer for the days when you absolutely can't do anything but defrost something and eat it. So it comes down to thinking ahead, asking other people for help, delegating the chores to people that have got spare energy, saving your energy for the stuff that is about you, that only you can do and only you want to do, and is about important and precious.
And try not to feel guilty about it. It's like, if I get my kids to help out at home, I kind of feel like, well, I'm setting them up for life with some life skills anyway.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant idea. Yeah.
So are there any medical treatments that you can use for fatigue? But this is a question we see a lot.
It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one. There are two things that you might have heard of as medications for fatigue. One is modafinil, which is no longer prescribed anymore, but there might be some people who are still, in the UK that is, there might be some people who are still taking modafinil, but these days it tends only to be prescribed for people with sort of excessive sleepiness, sort of through narcolepsy. I think the evidence is that for MS it's a bit mixed and not necessarily very effective. And the other one that you might have come across is amantadine.
Yeah.
That is licensed for MS fatigue. It's not often prescribed either. And even if it is, you might find that it doesn't really work for you. Probably only 2 people in 5 that take it find any impact. And it's not going to wipe out all the fatigue. But, you know, if your fatigue is incapacitating, if you've tried methods to really support yourself as much as you can and got your family supporting you, and it's still really, really impacting your life, then I think it's absolutely something you can bring up.
Yeah.
But I think the flip side is also, what other things are you taking that might be impacting your fatigue?
Yeah.
Like vertigo drugs, like drugs for spasms, and or low mood and things like that.
Yeah.
So definitely there's also a space for having that kind of conversation with your health professional. Is there any kind of medicines review we can do that might moderate the effect of fatigue as a side effect as well as fatigue, full stop? Yeah.
What about supplements? That was something somebody was asking on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real... there's really mixed evidence on this. Basically, if you've got a really healthy diet, there's no reason to think that you're not getting everything you need from a decent diet. I know there's people that take vitamin D supplements, they take B vitamins, and they feel that those are beneficial. If you can afford it, if you're happy to try it out, it's certainly safe to do so within normal limits. What I would say though, why not take a bit of a diary? Be a citizen scientist.
Yeah.
Give yourself a couple of weeks diarising how you feel, when the fatigue's worse, when it's not so bad, and what you've eaten and drunk and done during the day. And then if you want to take a supplement, take it for a little while and diarise that as well.
Yeah.
So you often hear people that say, oh, well, I started taking this and it was instant, and it made a difference. I think, well, did it really? Have you actually got that baseline to compare it with?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do convince ourselves
Yeah.
of these things, and I would just hate to think of somebody spending tens of thousands, hundreds of pounds a year on supplements they just didn't need when
These can get very expensive.
Yeah, they can get very expensive really quickly. So
I think we have a question.
Ashley, always have a nap in the afternoons. Is this because of MS or because you're 50? Well, it could be both. I'm nearly 50. I certainly feel more fatigued after a big meal, perhaps. So actually, there might be something around when you're eating a big meal and the impact on how drowsy you might feel. But yeah, it could easily be your MS. I would say it's quite hard to tease these things out, aren't they? As we said at the beginning, working out some of the things that might be impacting, like sleep and diet and stress of work or whatever, and seeing if you can kind of make a difference that way.
But I mean, if it's helping for you, Ashley, then that's not the bad thing, I suppose, because some people do talk about daytime sleeping not being so good.
No, but I think building in rest periods is part of that. If by having a nap at lunchtime, that means that you're functional in the evenings, then do it. Go with it. You're doing that planning, that building in the rest periods through the day, topping up your energy levels, so you've got some spare for later. No, that's definitely worth doing. Menelaya again. Walking, drawing, and having a schedule helps. Yeah, no. I was going to come on to exercise next, actually, and it feels like the work if you're having bad fatigue and if someone says, if you got outside and did some exercise, that would really help. Yeah. And you probably feel like lamping them. Yeah. Because how do you know how I feel? Yeah. I can't get off this sofa and you're telling me to go for a walk. Yeah. But actually, if on the days when you feel able to, you can do a little bit of moderate exercise, that is the number one DMD for fatigue, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I know you find it really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I find like that's like because I tried some drugs for fatigue. I've tried all sorts, tried a bit of supplements and things, but the only thing that really works for me is exercise. And for me, I was a self-confessed couch potato. I did not do anything. You got tired running for the bus, but it was a very slow build-up. It's taken very many years to sort of get myself into a routine where I'm exercising, not every day, but like most mornings I do a thing to set me off, and that keeps me sort of my energy topped up so I can work. And that works for me. And I was just saying that, it's different from different people. I know some people can stomach the idea of exercise in the morning, but they're better off doing it after work, because then they get that extra boost of energy for the evening, so they can entertain or be with their family. But
it does make a difference, doesn't it? And I think it doesn't have to be lots. It doesn't have to make you feel exhausted. A 10-minute walk around the block that you build up to a half an hour walk over a period of weeks and months, that's a really good thing to do. I think there's something about getting some daylight really helps, helping you really notice the difference between awake time and a sleep time. And I did like your point about a schedule as well, because that sort of takes the effort out of thinking about the day, doesn't it? And if this is what happens, I've got my trainers by the door, I'm going to stick them on and go for a walk or a little run before, and then I'm going to come home and I'm going to have my breakfast, and it's all there and it's ready, and then I don't have to think about it. I don't have to use that emotional energy. Even.
That's it.
I think that's a really good advice, Menelaya. Thank you.
So we've spoken a little bit about diet before, about like how you actually set up, but are there any diets out there that's sort of proven to help with fatigue? Because this is something that a lot of people swear by.
People come round and round to that. I think there's good evidence that a healthy diet with that covers all the nutritional bases is very sensible and helpful for people with MS for all sorts of different reasons. Having excess weight, having other health conditions, those are not going to help your MS, they're not going to help your fatigue, they're not going to help your other symptoms, and it's going to make it harder to manage and treat. So staying as well as you can is a really sensible thing. When it comes to people that put their reputation behind a specific diet, a specific diet plan, I think those things are trickier. You'll hear testimonials from people who said they work really well for them. And you'll hear quite a lot of people who've said that cutting out meat or cutting out milk and cheese, cutting out something made all the difference for them. What you won't hear is from the people that tried it and it didn't work, and then they moved off and did something else. So you're only hearing the benefits from the people that it worked for. Now, if that's going to be, some people are really drawn to that. They say, actually, I'm going, looking after my MS and looking after me means, for me, I'm going to be vegan. I'm going to look for whole foods. I'm going to take specific care, real care with my diet, and that's part of, and it's a self-care thing. And absolutely no problem with that. I think that's a really good, positive, personal choice. But I think also, if you think that the thought of giving things up like that is heartbreaking, it's going to impact your mood, make you feel like you're being punished for having MS, don't do it. Don't do it. You choose how you choose what self-care looks like to you. But I think a basically healthy diet, the right nutrients, enough fluids, not too much alcohol, tea and coffee mostly fine in moderation for most people. This is something that does come up a lot in conversations, doesn't it? And on our Facebook forum, people say, "Oh, is coffee good or bad for MS?" I use coffee to help me with my fatigue and help me get up in the morning. But honestly, if these are, and then some people say, "Well, if I have coffee too late in the day, I can't sleep." So you know your response to caffeine. I think if you have maybe an irritable bladder, perhaps caffeine can be a problem. But for most other people, even anxiety, perhaps not ideal. But for most other people, coffee is a good is helpful.
Yeah.
And it's not just the caffeine. Don't forget that tea and coffee don't just have caffeine.
No.
They have all kinds of other
things.
traces of sort of plant chemicals, some of which seem to be quite beneficial. So yeah, don't beat yourself up if you're using caffeine as a
crutch.
as a way. Yeah.
But I mean, well, you were talking about the diary. There's a good way to try this with when it comes to diet.
How does it make a difference if you have a double shot of espresso at 8 o'clock in the morning, or does it help if you have that coffee after lunch?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. See,
or if you want to try a specific diet, maybe I'm going to go vegan for this 2 months and then see if it has any.
We do hear a lot of people that find that reducing meat has helped them, and I think there's a lot of well-being. There's a lot of other reasons why that can be helpful, but say it's not. There's not evidence, I would say, that that's an essential way to eat if you have MS. Absolutely. Yeah. So did I see Kevin just had a comment as well? So Kevin's had Guillain-Barré syndrome for 7 years. He naps. He has fatigue. Should he ask his doctor if he has MS? So Guillain-Barré or Guillain-Barré syndrome is another neurological condition that's usually. It can be a bit of an MS mimic, can't it? And you can have people that develop neurological symptoms with Guillain-Barré and they recover broadly after a couple of years or more. It can be. I think Kevin's right to suggest it might be worth, after 7 years, it might be worth having a chat to your neurologist or your doctor and saying that there's some residual symptoms here. Yeah. I'm very, very, very fatigued. Is there something else going on? Yeah. Is it still Guillain-Barré or Guillain-Barré? How do you pronounce it?
I think it's Barré. My father-in-law had this, and it was funny. The question we had before about family members not understanding. When he had it, he sort of came up to me afterwards, and when he was out of hospital, and he was saying, "I really understand what you're talking about when it comes to fatigue now." Yeah. So
I would go back and check that, Kevin. Actually, I would speak to a health professional and see what they say. If you're still, impacted by fatigue after 7 years, then it might be definitely worth looking at.
We mentioned a little bit about fatigue can make other MS symptoms worse, but are there any sort of known triggers when it comes to fatigue? You mentioned heat, for instance.
Yeah, so things like anything that makes it, MS is really, it can fluctuate with things like the temperature and the weather, which is weird, isn't it? I imagine having a condition that the weather affects. It's crazy. But it's to do with how easily your nerves are conducting those messages, as we said, from the brain to the body. And in hot weather, things slow down. Sometimes. In cold weather, obviously people's other symptoms can be impacted. Things like mobility and pain and spasms and things can be negatively affected by cold weather. But if you've not had fatigue before, or not very much, and it's suddenly got worse, and you haven't, there hasn't been a change in the weather, you're maybe not particularly stressed at work, or that have family complications making you worried or upset, it might be worth getting a dipstick test for a urine test, mentioning it to a health professional. Could it be that you have some kind of underlying infection? And for people with MS, the most common infection is a wee infection. So if your fatigue has suddenly worsened, it's definitely worth raising that with a health professional. I would say.
I think, during the summer when it was very, very hot, the fatigue for me, I was just completely useless. But I know that a lot of the non-MS population was feeling it too.
I was not much better, frankly. We're all sitting around with fans and our feet in cold buckets of cold water and stuff, and anything we can do. But there's some great things like cooling blankets and little gel packs that you can put in the fridge and just sort of keep under your top or something, around your neck. Managing. For example, if you're struggling to exercise because of fatigue, then having a glass of iced water first can give you a little bit of can sometimes get you to now I can get up, I can go for a walk. I can exercise in a way, and then have that cold water to sip to keep your temperature low as well, and sort of try managing it that way. That could be useful.
Remember when we had Nikos on the podcast and we were talking about hot weather, and he was sort of saying that there is actually some research into not just drinking but actually having a bit of a cold shower before you go out as well, so your body is already cooled down a little bit to sort of counteract the heat. Absolutely.
I mean, we've known about hot baths triggering worsening symptoms in MS for a long time. In fact, it used to be one of the defining diagnostic tests. You know, did you suddenly lose your eyesight when you got into the bath? What doctor would do that? But anyway, but yeah, so if you're planning to exercise, if you want to feel a bit brighter and maybe cold shower, maybe that's the answer. There's something to be said for the cold water swimming and things like that.
And I guess that might be something to look out for as well. If you are thinking, I'm going to start exercising, and then suddenly you feel like you're really fatigued by it, that could be because you get too hot. So maybe try something that's like done out in a gym in an air-conditioned room, or swimming, or other things that
things like that. Absolutely. And I think in terms of daytime, making sure you've got ways to keep your office cool, your home cool. I mean, I know we've all had the windows open for a couple of years now to keep infection risk low, but it hasn't hurt to have that kind of cool fresh air as well.
If you are struggling with fatigue, what's the sort of first point of contact that you should make if you actually want to see if there is anything that can be done about it?
I mean, for most people with MS, their first port of call would always be their MS nurse. And as I say, it's an understood symptom of MS. For many people, it comes and goes, and it's something they live with as part of their MS for over long periods. But I say if something is different, and it can be severely worsened fatigue, or any new symptom, or anything that gets, pop a message to your MS nurse, give them a ring, leave a message on the answer phone, say that this is troubling me. It's much worse than normal. I'm concerned there's something happening. I think it's fair to say that they would be unlikely to sort of escalate that and think it was a relapse if it was just fatigue on its own, but that it might well be an indication of something else going on. Your MS team want to know about any changes, broadly speaking.
And as you mentioned, there are fatigue courses and things like that you can sort of learn to manage fatigue. I mean, there is some tips in there.
The book we designed is basically a fatigue management course in book form. And I would just say, so what is fatigue? What are the causes of fatigue? How to manage fatigue? And then sections on building up your energy levels and using your energy effectively. And I think that one of the benefits of doing a face-to-face course or a video course is that you'll be part of a cohort of other people who are going through the same thing, and you can kind of share hints and tips and just a little bit of moral support. It's so nice to have someone on the journey, isn't it? Even when it's a difficult journey.
People who understand what you're going through, definitely.
Oh, another question. Hi, Ashley again. I was left in a hot tub for 30 minutes on holiday. Oh, man, I'm glad you had no ill effects from the heat.
It's. I think I've definitely, because I love a bath, but I sometimes do the stupid thing of making it too hot, and then I can't almost get out of it because I'm just so fatigued afterwards. So it's like, come to the end of the day, muscles might be aching from exercise, and have a nice hot bath, and then suddenly just stuck.
You know what? If you want to wind down, if you're going to do that and then have a lovely relaxing day, and you don't have to do anything much, and if you're on holiday and all you're going to do is lie on a lounger with a book and a cold drink, well, why not? But I think, perhaps being in a hot tub for too long at the wrong time of day could make it hard for other things.
We have seen a few comments online about, now I'm trying to remember is it Wim Hof method?
Involves
which
cold.
Is obviously the opposite.
Exactly. The, the ice and the cold and and things like that. I think there's some other supplements and things involved in that as well. I haven't looked into it in great depth.
I think it is just to go in the water cold, but you're going to have to look that one up. But
adherence of that kind of methodology and that kind of and related things suggests that the cold water is really good for your a particular nerve pathway that stimulates anti-inflammatory activity generally through the body. So it's not just for MS and MS fatigue. People might consider it for all sorts of other reasons, but we tend to, people who are using that method are tending to think about inflammation as being a bad thing, and that it's something that Western lifestyles and Western diets tend to promote, and we sit around and we eat the wrong stuff and everything just gets a bit inflamed. And actually, maybe there's something in it. There may well be, but if it works for you, it's one to try. Don't go jumping into cold water without having somebody around you, though. Make sure you've got, sudden shocks like that can be dangerous to the heart. But
I'm currently following Liz, who she did a long cycle all around.
Oh my goodness, amazing Liz.
At the moment on her Instagram, I think she's doing a challenge that every day this month she's going into a loch, because I think she's in Scotland at the moment, and it looks very cold, but she's looking like she's loving it. So.
Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. Hello, Kevin. It's lovely to... Kevin is thanking us for reading and replying, and we are very grateful for your comment, Kevin. He's struggling with his symptoms and he's finding fatigue really draining. And we completely sympathise. And I think it's fair to say you're not alone.
No.
There'll be a lot of people out there watching this today or watching it later on who will recognise that. And it can take you to quite a dark place, can't it? Because if it's so draining and you say, well, what am I doing? I can't get up. And you tell yourself you're lazy and you tell yourself that you're useless, and you're really not. It's not your fault. No. MS fatigue is draining. It's really difficult to manage, and it will take time and help to kind of find out what's going to work for you. Definitely get your MS team involved. Look for referrals to fatigue management classes, as we've mentioned. There are medication options, even if they're not great. They're not. There's no magic bullet here.
But worth trying, perhaps.
Worth trying, and I think being open with your loved ones. Tell the people around you, not just that you are feeling fatigued, but the impact that has on you and the impact that's having on your mental health. And on all the things that you'd love to do, but you could just really do with some help with.
We had a chap who's done a lot of things for us volunteering, called Will, who's made some videos and podcasts. And I love the way that he sort of visualized it as your brain is kind of like a overworked traffic system. And when the fatigue occurs because you got demyelination in certain parts, the brain is clever enough to reroute it, but that will take a long time for the traffic to get through these rerouted areas. And that's sort of how I look at it sometimes. That I'll get there in the end, but it will take me longer. And that's okay, because my brain is really working hard now.
Yeah, absolutely. So from MS UK, what are your thoughts on modafinil and amantadine? We talked about those earlier on. We don't, as far as I know, I don't think people with MS are still being prescribed modafinil, although there will be some people who are on existing prescriptions and are still getting, are still using those. And that was a European safety review, I think, that suggested it wasn't really worth the side effects, modafinil. But if you're still taking it and you're finding use from it, there's no reason to stop taking it. And then amantadine, the evidence suggests that only 2 in 5 of people who take it find benefit. It's not going to wipe out all your fatigue. It might improve matters. But yeah, it's one of those that there really ought to be more to do with it. And I do wonder sometimes now with whether long COVID is shining a bit of a light on these kind of these kind of conditions where fatigue is such a big part, whether we might get some more research into things that might deal with fatigue that will benefit the MS community, which would be amazing, I think. I
certainly know that on our Facebook group, which we are a UK charity, we do get some people from other countries, and they do talk about other drugs that they have, like in America, or I'm from Sweden, so I know that there are some other things that people use in Sweden, which tends to be sort of more, I was going to say uppers, almost like those kind of, but that's not being offered at all in the UK, is it?
No, it's not. I know it feels really it feels like people in the UK are a little hard done by. You know, you can drink the dark chocolate, hot chocolate, which has a for some people find that dark chocolate, proper cacao, hot chocolate can be useful. But whether that's that's then starting to blur the line, isn't it, between dietary supplement and nutritional thing. So I think there's a lot of tinkering around the edges. But there's not really been, in the UK at least, a real medication response to this. And when you think of the fact that fatigue is the most common reason why people with MS might leave the workplace, they might end up retiring sooner than they want to, or change jobs, or go part-time. There's a huge economic impact of unmanaged fatigue in the UK, and I think it's a real shame.
I personally, I'm always quite shocked that it's not
more
research into it, because it feels like, if you're from the pharma industry and you're watching this, why are you not doing research into it?
And there are, hundreds of thousands of people affected by fatigue, not just with MS, but people with ME, people with fibromyalgia, people with long COVID. It's a shared symptom, and it would be really great to see more research into treatments. I'd have to look up what the exact side effects for modafinil were. As I say, my understanding, I was just checking just beforehand. I think it was a European safety review into modafinil, and they and the UK judge said it wasn't the cost benefit analysis was not in its favour. I can look that up.
And we can pop the links.
And I can pop the links into the bottom of the this field when it goes up on YouTube. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So if you, because not everybody's obviously watching this live, we will pop it up onto YouTube later on, so you can access it from there. So you're not missing out on anything. Or if you're watching it now and you're feeling really fatigued, so you're not really paying attention, then you can rewatch it later on.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There's some of the you were talking about pharma companies. I think some of them are noticing that if you can show that your disease-modifying drug, for example, has an impact on fatigue, that's a real marketing plus, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And I know, not naming any names, partly because I can't remember, but I know one of them is thinking that the impact on fatigue is definitely something worth talking about, because people will really want that. People really want to solve this problem.
It would be such a big impact on the MS community if there actually was a medical thing that would work for more people.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to an interview that we did with Alistair Coles a long time ago now. We asked about what a cure for MS would look like. And he pointed out that there are no autoimmune conditions that have been cured, in that people no longer they were diagnosed with a condition and now they're not.
Yeah.
They, no matter what, they're still people that have MS. They have just got the symptoms very much under control, to the extent that they don't impact them anymore. And I think fatigue is one of those things, isn't it? If you could get rid of fatigue entirely, the being diagnosed with MS would be much less significant, wouldn't it? Be wonderful.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, it's not just about lesions and relapses and progression. It's, fatigue is one of the things that you live with every single day sometimes. And so, there's a huge impact there
to
be had.
Is. I want to say big thank you to everyone who's commented and sent questions and things. Just because we're going to stop this very soon now, it doesn't mean that we can't answer your questions. You can give us a call. And Claire, why don't you tell how people can get that book if they want it?
So absolutely. On the MS Trust website, we've got a publications shop. So you go to the shop, mstrust.org.uk, and you will find all of our publications, and you can download them for free, and they'll, you put in your email address and it'll be delivered to your email, or you can order a paper copy, and again, it will be sent to you absolutely free. And this is part of what, a big part of what the MS Trust is here for, is getting this information into your hands. So we've got information web pages on fatigue as well, and we've mentioned some of these interviews with people. We've had webinars and all sorts of interviews and expert consultation that you can make use of as well. So please do please do go and make yourself available. I think a fatigue book is one of our absolutely most popular ones.
Yeah.
You know, we have to reprint it every couple of years.
Flies off the shelves.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. So that's good. I'm just really glad it's been useful to people.
I want to say a big thank you, Claire, for coming and joining us today.
Oh,
It's
huge
very
pleasure.
exciting for our
Huge
first
pleasure.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll come back again.
Yes, and we're hoping to do these sort of more regularly. So if there's any topics that you would like us to talk about, please let us know. Fatigue was obviously a big one, but we know that there certainly are a lot of other topics. So please suggest them to us, and we'll be back online in a month or so, maybe.
Yeah, fantastic. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear from you, and it's lovely to be here. Thanks, Helena.
Thank you.